Hi,
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. I love your blue background. That's really pretty.
Oh, thank you. That's my new wall. It's
Oh
freezing in my office, so I have to turn the heat on.
my gosh, I feel you. Colorado, I'm sure Vermont very similar, but it's been that polar vortex. So we've
Yeah,
had
it's
like
been 10, it was 10 below this morning.
exactly. So I have
All
like a
right, I've
nice
I've
little
made you a co-host,
okay.
and I've just been on Zoom for 2 hours, so I have to go to the ladies' room.
Yeah, do your thing. Do your thing.
Hi, Marie.
Hi, Kathleen.
Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I have a wood background like that in a different part of my house.
That's a ceiling.
Yes. Hold on, I just have to turn the heat on. It's freezing in this room. New water, and we're recording. Oh, it started already. Get to see real life here. All right, all right. We can both see the waiting room. Yes, Erin?
Yes.
All right, and we're not live streaming, so that's okay too.
That's okay for sure.
All right, so welcome everybody to the Thrive Together Masterclass. It's January 22nd, 2025. And I'm so happy to have Erin Meierotto from Pro REA Staffing with us because we have been collaborating for years, and I have so much respect and regard for the work that Erin and the team at Pro REA do to be able to really look for the most appropriate match, right, for real estate operations talent, no matter what the situation is, all different levels. And for people who are also fans and been coming to the Thrive Together Masterclass for a while, Dr. Laura Sims has often, most often been our host, and she is just about to go on maternity leave and is expecting her baby girl. We know it's a girl in the beginning of February. So we're in a little bit of the waiting game about when the baby's coming and exactly how things are going. But she's home nesting. And so we miss her on a daily basis now, but she's doing wonderful, and so she has put me in charge of the Thrive Together Masterclass to hold this little egg from one place to another until she comes back, which we think maybe is in May. Not really sure. But in the meantime, here we are. So when I looked at the beginning of the year, right, to look at, okay, it's January. how do we want to get started with the year, and what are some of the common challenges that people look at? And that often is, all right, here are my goals and here are my activities, but then it comes in, what does support look like? And so I thought it was perfect time to ask Erin to join us and be able to engage in this conversation about, all right, how do we make those decisions about when do you know you need help? When do you know what you should have for support? And what are the choices about that? And how do we make a match? So that's the context for this masterclass. But Erin, for people that perhaps are not familiar with you or with Pro REA staffing, will you please tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be where you are?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and for all the collaboration over the years, by the way, as well. This is just an amazing experience. And I look
I think we're
forward
at 7 years. I think we're at 7 years.
Yeah, I'll be with Pro EA almost, it'll be 8 years in March. So coming up quickly here, wild. So my background is I have over 20 years of real estate experience, and that encompasses anything from mortgage lending to insurance to real estate sales, and then jumped into recruiting as well. So for the past 8 years, I've been working with Vanessa at Pro REA,
Yeah.
helping our clients find the appropriate support for their needs at that time. And there is always a lot of conversation around, how do I know what I need, when I need it? I need an assistant. There's so much to look at, right?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So thank you.
Great pleasure. And I too, I'm at 23 years in real estate in 2002. Calculate 23 years in the real estate industry. And I'm curious for people who are here, how many years do we have collectively in the industry? That's always fun to add up. Emery, how many years are you now?
I'm on my 18th year.
Okay, 18. And I don't know if Lauren and Sydney, if you can't be on camera, if you wanted to put it in the chat, how many years, right? And so if we have, I'm at 23, and Erin, you're at, did you say over 20? Is it?
Yeah, I would say like 24 or 5.
Let's go 5. All right, so far we're at 66 years. Oh, Lauren's got 5. We're at 71. Right, so I just love that, so we have 71 years of cumulative experience. And it does help, right, to be able to have, oh, I don't think I've spelled cumulative, right? You're gonna have to forgive me. Cumulative. Okay, there we go. Experience to be able to see, right, how do we bring that experience together to see, well, there can't be a problem that we can't solve together once we get all of that brain trust right in one place. So let's start with the question, how does an agent know that they've come to a point where they need help, is one way to put it, or that they want to get leverage for their time, or that they know that the administrative part of their work as an agent is keeping them from doing other things, whether that be get more sales or enjoy their life more or spend more time with their family. So Erin, what are the symptoms of when an agent knows that, okay, the water is a little high?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So typically what I see is agents who are not able to maintain the same level of consistency within their sales pipeline or serve the clients that are coming to them or doing that prospecting, right? That's required because you're handling all of your administrative in addition to all of your sales and your prospecting and everything else. So you become either overworked and burnout, or your pipeline, you'll get the, 0 to 0, right? Which is not fun for anyone, having to restart everything over. So that's kind of what I see as the first sign.
Yes. And that pipeline management, I was just on a coaching call talking to a client who's gotten remotivated to prospect and reach out, having seen like, oh, wow, look what happens, right? The expenses stay and grow. But once you get involved in the deal, then you end up not reaching out anymore, right? And so that creates that roller coaster for an agent. And so if you can see that that roller coaster happened to you last year, then this can be one of the reasons why is that the agent got pulled more into the deal, because it is possible to have more consistency in the business. So Erin, talk about some of your experience with agents that you've seen, like, oh, once they put someone in place, what are then, some of the things that can happen in their business once they have leverage?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, then they develop, one, they have a partner. They have a partner they can lean on for that support who has the opposite characteristics that they do, right? They are not a salesperson, number one. It's not a buyer's agent on a team who might want to help you do this or that. It's more of a person who is administratively focused.
Yes.
In doing that, you have that administrative partner and you're working in tandem together, right? They're looking out for you. You're keeping them informed. They're keeping you informed and prepared for your day, appointments, meetings, managing your CRM, helping manage client communication, helping with the transactions. I would say the best place to start if you're in a place where you're not sure that you are ready for that full-time support is going to be sitting down and saying, am I using the TC in the office? Am I using a contract TC? Because that's the number one way to start alleviating some pressure on yourself with some of the details.
Yes, and I don't want to assume anything. TC, right? Transaction coordinator.
Yes. Transaction coordinator.
And in some offices, there is listing coordination.
Right, exactly.
So on this level, right, we're beginning to look at tasks that are sales generating and that are income servicing. So we have generating and servicing. And so that becomes the first sort of way in which my dear colleague Margaret Smith calls it the popsicle stick exercise, where you could write on a popsicle stick, what are all the tasks that are doing, and then you stack them up and you begin to like, oh, this stack is too high that I'm doing in servicing, when as an agent, what you really need to be doing is generating. Right. And so then what are the choices then for the servicing tasks? And to your point, Erin, what is available from the broker or from the team? What is available in terms of servicing the deal from the transaction coordinator? And if that's no longer enough, then what do you need? Right. So then that becomes this next level. The other way I like to think about separating these tasks are, what are things that need to be done by someone local, like they need to go outside and they need to go to a property, and what are some things that can be done either remotely or just from being on a computer or from being available to answer a phone call or make a phone call or send an email, or those are things that are even easier sometimes to delegate because they don't necessarily require someone to be driving around in their car and go to a property. But that also becomes one of the things that need to be done remotely or need to be done in person. So Erin, where do you see that you can help agents be able to evaluate what are their options for both, remote or local?
Sure. I mean, there are options for everyone. So whether we're local, we're in an office, we're locally remote, meaning maybe we only come into the office a couple times a week, right? So there's no need to be, within a very short commute of that office. Or maybe we are okay with experience from another state, and in that state where someone else resides, the salary that you need to offer will match your budget. So you kind of have to be flexible with yourself, be flexible with your needs, but think about the core needs of your business. Do you really need that person sitting in your office daily, answering phones? Are you in the office? Are there other people in the office? I hope you're not in the office, at least not every day, right?
Right.
But are there other people in the office that are you on a big team? Do you need to collaborate together to come up with solutions to the problems that you're facing? Or is this more of a smaller environment where, your person doesn't need to be in the office and you can provide that flexibility? Kind of the golden thing here is the more flexible you are with others, the more flexible they will be with you.
Oh, all right.
Right. So if you're saying, hey, my office hours are 9 to 6, maybe they have something going on there, they're dropping off children, or they have other priorities in the morning that they have to handle, or the traffic is horrible, right? Maybe they need to come in earlier and that works better for them, or they need to come in later. So it can be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be, I'm giving the world a way to make the person happy, because again, it has to be mutually beneficial, right?
Yes. So you brought up a word we should talk about as we look at these options, which is budget,
Yes. Budget.
right? And then being able to see, because it is an investment, and we like to speak about having administrative staff as an investment and not an expense,
Mhm.
even though it technically costs money, which you might consider an expense, but it is an investment in your business. And it is also looking at, because it goes right back to the word that Erin started with us, which is consistency. We're looking for consistent support so you can have consistent results, so you can have consistent customer service. And so that's why the investment happens all the time, and not just like when you're crazy busy, you expect someone to jump in and help you, right? So we're trying to create this consistency. So I have a formula that I talk to agents about around determining what is a level of investment that is appropriate for them. But Erin, I'm interested in, how do you look at this with agents to help them see what they should do?
Sure. It kind of depends on where they're at, right? What part of the country are you in? What type of role are you hiring for? What are you flexible with? Like, do they need the real estate experience, the license, so on and so forth, right? So you kind of have to look at your list of things that are important to you and decide what that level of skill and experience is going to cost you. And then decide, obviously, if that's within your budget. And the formula that we typically use is, particularly for your first assistant, no more than 20 to 25% at most of your net commission
After the broker
number.
their piece.
Yeah, the net. So you're done paying your broker all the splits, the fees, whatever the case might be, that whatever's remaining, your annual GCI, take that number, 20 to 25%. That is your budget. That should be a reasonable budget. That you have available without jeopardizing your financial situation within your business and harming yourself. And so taking a look at that, you have to look at, where do I live? What's my market rate, right? Because just because you want this in-person, local, wonderful individual with a license to help you with showings, clients, so on and so forth, and including your administrative responsibilities and your operations, if that person's budget exceeds that 20% to 25%, we have to start getting creative upon what you can live with, what you can be flexible with until you reach that point, right? Because it's not forever. You're just getting started with it if you're at that point.
Right, because so I have the same ratio, but it can go from as low as 10% to as high as 25, just like you said, based on where you are in the business. Because the idea is, so I put an example in the chat, if you have a $250,000 commission level after the brokerage gets their fees, and you invested 20% of that in support, that would be $50,000 a year, which is a quite reasonable budget in most locations, even for a full-time person, depending on where you are. If you're in California, all right, it's like 85 to 100 and a quarter for an assistant full-time. Like, that's not going to make it. But a $50,000 budget will get you quite a bit of labor, depending on what the mix is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. You're looking at the skills and the experience, the qualifications.
Right, even if that was a vendor part-time to do marketing materials for you, or that was a virtual assistant that's going to help you manage your calendar and your email at $1,200 a month, right? $1,200 a month at 12 months a year is $14,400 a year. That's not 50, right? So but if you look at the 50, so I'll say 10% is usually when you are almost really at $1 million in GCI potentially. To have as low as 10% to 25% of your commission level is the range. And then I also say it's a very personal decision. If you're an agent who has school-age children in private school and elderly parents in nursing homes, right, then your budget is maybe smaller because you have demands to take care of your life that mean that we have to try to squeeze something different out of that scenario because this other number isn't appropriate for you. That's okay.
Yeah.
And so then being able to look at what are the skills and experience that someone might need? How does an agent determine that? So you also said your complement. So how does an agent know what they do well and they should keep doing, and what are things that they should maybe think about having someone else do?
Sure. So obviously the zone of genius for an agent is to be out networking, building relationships, prospecting, even if that's calling, whether it's expireds, whatever your system in, calling into your client database, making those calls daily, right? That should be your area. There are agents that are absolutely amazing with paperwork and they're amazing with systems, but they will quickly learn that that's not going to get them the sales that they need to accomplish the goals that they have. So we have to start thinking about this and breaking it down. And typically what I help people do is kind of go through their day, write down everything that you're doing and decide, is this a money-making activity for me? And if it's not a money-making activity for you, then that belongs on the checklist of things that you need your assistant to support you with. Then we have to break it down a little bit further. If you're looking for somebody to handle paperwork and you're looking for a highly creative individual, you might need two different people because they are not the same type of person. That administratively focused, accurate, attention to detail, analytical thinker is not the same as the creative, coming up with amazing tagline slogans, or not slogans per se, but you're repeating
Property
your
description.
branding. Yeah, repeating your branding and creating thought-provoking social media, so on and so forth. They're not the same people. So you really have to kind of boil it down to that. And then we can take a look at what's the first priority, and then where can we find you the additional leverage that you may need, because it's not as though you just need that admin, right? You need the paperwork and all of the day-to-day there handled. You really do need the marketing too. So it's not either or.
Right.
Try to find ways to help you get in the middle or start with one thing first.
Yes, you make a very good point about very often, right? It's so easy to want to put all the things you need into one package. But when it comes to talent, right, it comes to the reality of how people usually tend to work. That highly organized paperwork compliance person that's really good at noticing that something wasn't checked or it wasn't initialed, or that there's certain dates and things happening, maybe a completely different person that's really good at creatively coming up with flyers and just listed cards and property descriptions, and these are two different brains. Right. And even if one person is reasonably good at both, what I have found in my coaching experience is that they really have to be able to structure their time, because it's so hard to pivot from organizational compliance tasks to creative tasks. It's like their brain stalls, like they can't just switch from, 10 to 10:30, 11 to 11:30. It's like, no, we have to. And then that's hard to do sometimes in the real estate industry, to create those big breaks where you can really have creative time separate from compliance kind of time. Yes. I want to pause here and say if there are, and ask for any particular questions. Like Anne-Marie, do you have any particular challenge that you're looking at? Not necessarily. You're just learning. And for Lauren or for Sydney, if you have things in particular that you want to make sure we touch on that are challenges or things you're looking for, and I don't know if both of you are agents or if either of you is also in the operations field, if you're looking to be able to also, maybe you're looking for more leverage for your own role. Listening in. All right, Lauren, I'm glad that you're here, because this also becomes probably something we should talk about, which is capacity. And it's one of the other factors, right? So we've talked some already about agents who recognize that their capacity to have consistent pipeline or consistent service. That also addresses or speaks to the agent's capacity. But then there's also an administrative capacity. It isn't just endless, right? And so there are so many admin that before they may know this for themselves, and agents who work with them think, well, we can just make it better. We could just add more tasks. We can just keep making it faster. And you can't run a sprint all day long. It's exhausting, right?
Absolutely. And I get a lot of calls from clients who we've placed an amazing, talented assistant in that role. And, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's even longer, but we're getting calls to add to that team for another admin to join to support that operational individual and provide some relief, right? Nobody wants to work 24/7.
No. And so that, I think that's also something to look at in terms of capacity of the role, capacity of the function that is happening in here, and therefore then the capacity of that sort of area in the business, and how do we need to layer it. So let's sort of dive down into that a little bit. So the capacity for the role is also then usually connected to the volume of the business. And in addition to the volume of the business is the complexity of the tasks. So I always think, Erin, about Northern California in particular, right, where properties before they go on the market as a listing have to be magazine quality.
Yes.
So listing coordination in that area is a big deal.
Very different.
It's completely different. And there may certainly be other parts of the country where it is sort of the brand of the agent, where that's also their competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But that means, in terms of the capacity of thinking about the job, if the administrative assistant is going out to meet the inspector, because in Northern California, inspections are done before properties go on the market. So you can say to all the prospective buyers, here's the report. We already know there's $9,000 worth of rot in the deck, or whatever it might be. And then there is potentially they're doing construction work. They might be putting in new countertops or new flooring or changing light fixtures. And so I have clients who have a person on the team that does listing prep.
Yep.
And that person is different than the listing coordinator, who is actually working with the paperwork and the calendar and the setting up showing time or the showing request system or whatever that might be, right?
Oh, yeah.
So these become two different jobs.
Yep. It's a field rep and then that listing coordinator.
Yes, like a field rep who's out in the field, because it's so time consuming to be able to coordinate those things and then watch email, look at the calendar, make sure the contracts are coming in on time. And so being able to see that capacity for the role of listing coordination in that example, right, is two jobs because of how long it takes and the volume of the business. So when we mix in, we're going to have a listing a week, right? And or more than that. And the client I'm thinking of, I think you know them too, Erin, they do 300 deals a year, of which probably 60% of that is listings, right? So that's several a week. And then also thinking about, this is sort of a little farther down the rabbit hole of, once you get to that kind of volume, is also an idea to only list properties certain days of the week. So you can create a rhythm of when things are launching, right? So that people can once again create a consistency.
Strategy for sure.
Strategy for that. But then to look at the capacity of the tasks, right, of what it's taking. And this is sort of dovetailing into Dr. Laura Sims' work in systems documentation. But the idea that when a team needs to add a person, just like what you said, that people come back to you and say, okay, now I need an assistant for my assistant.
Exactly.
Sometimes also means that we need to look at, are there any tasks that we need to take away, or we're just adding things for people to do, which sometimes also means we're duplicating what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But give us an example, Erin, of when an assistant needs an assistant.
When they find themselves similarly to an agent, right? Just overwhelmed and really, instead of working a normal balanced schedule, they find themselves, handling things very late in the evening, very early in the morning, the middle of the night, all weekend long, right?
Yes.
That's a very quick way to burn your primary assistant out and make them very unhappy. So hiring somebody to help carry that load, right? So we see that divided in multiple ways. I see somebody who needs to come in and they have to have experience. That second assistant needs to have experience in listing management, transaction management, marketing, more templated, but it's more of a generalist. Or I see other situations where, that person, the ops manager is like, nope, I just want them to focus exclusively on listings and I will handle everything else. Or nope, I want them to focus exclusively on helping our agents with their buyers and setting up those searches and all that follow-up and database management. So they do divide and conquer, and some kind of come in and they're like, no, I need somebody to sort of just, we'll have tasks that we trade off every week where we're going to communicate and figure out who's on first, right?
Right.
And then everything else we're going to divide and conquer.
So I love that. So in being able to then look at what that talent is, what are the choices when an assistant needs an assistant about having the assistant participate in the hiring process? Because I think in our second half hour, we can get into some of the nitty gritty about what do we actually do, right, to find these people and to select the ones we need. But how does the team often participate in going through this process together?
Oh, that's such a great question. When I am helping clients add to teams, so we've already got some admin in the team, we've got others. I certainly want to speak to, obviously, whoever that team owner is to kind of get an understanding of their big picture, what needs to take place. And then I want to talk to, whoever's going to be the primary person overseeing that assistant, right? So in this instance, most of the time I already know who that is, right? We have that relationship.
Yeah.
But of course, we're approached by others that we don't know how their current assistant, how they operate, what's important to them, what their exact role is or function. So we really do as much as we can to uncover that, because when you're looking for an assistant for your assistant, you really need to take the time to take your current assistant's needs into consideration. And that goes anything from the skill set, the license, to communication style, to all the way down to personality, right? Just because
schedule.
just because somebody looks great on paper doesn't mean they're the right person for you or your assistant.
Yes, and you bring up the point about the timing, right, of when people need to work. I often tell agents, you can have coverage administratively 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day if you want it, but you can't have it from the same person.
Right.
So if you do find that you want someone to be watching email till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, or you want them to be on call on the weekend, or you want people to be able to draft a document, right, that is technically a licensed task in your state, then those kind of details, right, start to determine, all right, you need a licensed person because you need them to do licensed tasks. Doesn't mean you're looking to hire another agent necessarily, right, but you need someone who can be in compliance with the fact that the task they're doing is technically required to have a real estate license. Or if you just want someone to oversee looking at email, text messages, voicemail messages over the weekend or in the evening, then they don't necessarily have to be on your time zone. In fact, it might be better if they weren't on your time zone and they're doing things in the middle of the afternoon when it's in the middle of the night, right, for you. And so sometimes these distinctions help to determine where should this person come from and what do we really need them to have. But that idea that the assistant works like the agent is where we have to break that idea. Because they're not an agent. They don't make $250,000 a year or $500,000 a year or $750,000, depending on where we're talking about. And they often don't want the demand of that lifestyle. They want to be able to come in, do a great job, right, and then go home and take care of their family. And while it is common, right, to have administrative support people who are flexible and devoted and willing to go the extra mile. It is designed, right, to be a different kind of working situation and working relationship.
Mhm.
And I think in making this bridge between the what and the how, I have the question I want to make sure to ask you is, what are the steps that an agent can take to build a really productive relationship with their assistant?
I think the most effective thing is getting started off on the right foot, right? Are we sitting down? What was our process? How did we vet that individual before we hired them? We
Okay.
don't need to learn everything about, them because we didn't do a proper vetting on the second day that they're working together with you, right? That's terrible. So how do we come to be together? At the second part, I see the best way to build relationships is you as the business owner or even the operations manager, director, what have you, will have a set of KPIs that this person needs to meet, goals that you need them to achieve. And I would suggest bringing them into that goal setting process for that 30, 60, 90 and continuing, because the more you involve them, the more they're going to be involved and the more they're going to share in that mission.
Nice.
Because everybody is now on the same page and you're collectively working towards that same goal.
And the things that the KPIs, the kind of goals that administrative support people can be responsible for are things like launching things on time, right? Following up on things on time, things that are within their control to at least
Yes.
think about, follow up on, or actually implement.
Correct.
But they can't necessarily be responsible for an on-time closing, but they can be responsible for following up on time to making sure that they are aware that things are off track or on track, right? And so I often have agents ask me, like, I don't even know what my assistant would do, or I certainly don't know what kind of goals to give them because they're already stuck on their own goals, right, about bringing in business or closing deals. But to be able to have things like newsletters go out on time, just listed, just sold, things go out on time. So that kind of timely project management, calendar management are some examples, right, of goals that assistants can have. And the learning that you bring up, the 30, 60, 90-day onboarding, we like to see that the administrative person is actually responsible for tracking that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really engaged in that process.
Absolutely.
And
the accountability is amazing.
right? And that they're feeling of it, being in control of it, because being a new person is really, really
hard. Yeah, it's so hard.
And it is particularly hard for really talented, seasoned, experienced administrative people. Being new is the hardest because they love to know the answer, right? They're used to being in charge of things. And so now being new is a lot of effort. But having them be in charge of their own onboarding process with the agent, right, is helpful because then if there are at least categories, right, of like all the software they might have to learn or the paperwork they might have to learn or who do they call or who are all these people, these vendors that you like, right? So there's all these categories of things. And you and I both have, right, onboarding lists that we can help with that. But let's talk about the actual hiring process. So you, so Pro REA and myself, so Vanessa and I have co-founded the Hire Lab course. So we actually have a course to teach people about what are all the mechanisms to go through hiring, including all the forms you can fill out. And so you can hire on your own. But let's talk about your work as a recruiter and being the person who's really managing the search process. Talk us through, like, what is it that you do with agents to be able to, and potentially their administrative staff, right, if they're participating in the process of hiring someone to be on the admin team. What is the process that they go through to be able to learn and be able to actually hire with you?
Sure. So, I mean, we're going to hop on a call and we're going to go through and evaluate your business. Some people come to me having an exact idea of what they want. Others have come from a coach who has said, you really need an assistant. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what I need. I just was told this by my coach. And, we kind of have a different conversation at that point, right?
Right.
We're looking for what's going on in your business, what's been working, what's not working. If you've had somebody in that seat before, what did they do really well? If, what did they do really well? Why did they leave? How many people have you had work for you in a set period of time? We're looking for patterns. We just want to kind of have an understanding of what's going on. And we also want to make sure we're a match, right? So then we're going to start diving into the details of, the skills, the experience, what they're looking for, along with budget and other areas of importance. I mean, we really want to get very granular at some point. In the initial consultation, it's just kind of skimming the surface, understanding what we're looking for, what we need, and making sure that those two things can come together and we can be successful together in that search, right? Next steps, we're going to kind of go further into detail. If we move forward together, we're going to do a launch call, and we're going to really get very granular on the details of who we're looking for, what skills and experience are necessary, some of the challenges in your business that you would like help overcoming, in addition to, all the way down to the simple logistics of the salary, benefits, vacation time, so on and so forth, all those nitty-gritty details, right? Then we create the job ad on your behalf. We're going to create that job ad, and we're going to bring an element of what your culture and environment is into that ad, along with the role and the responsibilities, so to speak, the vision for that person in this role. What does that look like? And then we set up several metrics along the way where we are having the candidates participate. We're managing the job ad, posting the job ad, of course, doing all of the resume review on your behalf.
Right.
But then we're going through, and those that we move forward are completing skill assessments. So rather than conducting sort of time-consuming phone interviews, right, which if you are naturally good at interviewing, most people can really push through that very well. We are asking in an assessment, a written assessment on the computer, for people to answer a series of questions. And it would be things that you would expect in the job, in the first phone conversation. So your location, your years of experience, tell me your successes. How many listings have you managed? Are you okay with this commute? Is the salary in the range? Then depending on the specific role, we're going to get granular with those questions to test competency. Because a lot of people over the phone, right, they can say they know how to do quite a few things, but can they articulate that? And most importantly, can they articulate anything that they're sharing with us with the level of attention to the detail, the grammar, punctuation, the thoughtful answers that they put together, right? So we're learning more this way than we would by having just a simple conversation.
Yeah, let's pause here because this is really good. I certainly learned, because I too have a background as a recruiter, that from an innocent perspective,
yes,
candidates have an opinion of their ability based on their own lens of how they see themselves in their own experience in whatever environment they've been in, right? And then when you get into the job, sometimes if you don't do a skills assessment, then they now get seen through a different set of lenses where they used to be, maybe they were an expert. And now in this other environment where the bar is perhaps higher, they're not an expert. They're at best an intermediate. And so now it seems like they've oversold themselves, and the agent might feel like they got, less than they bargained for.
Yeah.
So now we have a disconnect, but now it sometimes happens when it's sort of too late. You already hired them.
Right.
And so the level of disappointment is just tragic.
It really is. It's so sad for both sides, right?
It is. It's sad for both sides. It's a terrible situation. So this whole idea of skills assessment is really a bit of an insurance policy for both sides to be able to know how they, I want to say like rank or level up, but I don't really like the sound of that, but really being able to trust their own competency and what they're getting, to be able to know, is this really the right match for this particular job that has these particular demands?
Right. I mean, the things that we're asking at this point in that skill assessment are, we have, how many errors are in this specific phrase? Can identify all of them? Tell me a little bit, if it's a listing management role, walk me through your process when you're managing listings. How many listings have you managed at any given time? What's your role in the process? What is, how are you responsible? I mean, we're getting very granular, and based upon obviously the thoughtful answer, right? Like, how critically are they thinking about this question? What is the effort that they're putting into this answer of the question? Or are they being very short, or are they really just explaining in reasonable detail? I don't want 12 paragraphs.
Yeah.
What the situation is. And then I'm looking at punctuation, grammar, spelling, tone, right? And then it's just, you'll start to see patterns as you're moving through that assistant. Either we have amazing attention to detail, we're making minor mistakes, it's not the end of the world. Simple tools like Grammarly can probably help that person, right? Just
right.
A little bit more self-aware, everybody moves quickly. But then there's some things that are innate, like when you're having a candidate, you're asking a question and they type NA, not even willing, right, to answer a very basic question. It's kind of a process of elimination at that point, and you already know you're not aligned with that person because they're not even putting in the effort to answer basic questions at that point, right?
Yes. So this relates back to when we were talking about the job posting.
Yes.
And I really do want to highlight the job posting because I always refer clients to look at pro REA staffing job postings because I have never seen such creative excellence at crafting something that is designed to attract the right talent for that particular opportunity. So do you remember, will you tell the story about the job posting with the Seinfeld references?
Oh yeah. This team, they were very much like, they had humor in their office that was Seinfeld. They had sayings, commentary, some, sarcasm. I mean, they were very kind people, very nice people. It was all out of jest, but they just really felt that if they hired and brought a new person into that environment and they had never heard of Seinfeld, didn't know what it was, and we're not talking, it wasn't necessarily recent times that Seinfeld has been on, right?
It's a long time ago now. It's like 35 years or something crazy.
So yeah, I mean, but if they've never had any, idea of what that show is or what it's about or the comedy, the storyline behind it, then they felt that that was just not a person that was going to align with their culture. So we really treated
job posting.
Yep. Hence, it's mentioned in the job posting. We like to bring elements into that job posting because, most people can do the work in front of them, and most people can do the work in front of them very well.
Okay.
But if you have a person in your office who is not appreciative, or it's just not the same type of culture, they're just not the same mindset, it can really disrupt them as a person and prevent them from having longevity in that role. And it can affect the entire rest of your team, including yourself, because of sort of, it's not really a negative, it's just not that same level, right? So you want to be where you belong, and you want to bring more people with you that belong, right?
Yeah, so everyone can feel comfortable to be authentic.
Yes.
Right. And the reaction of that job posting was wonderful.
Hilarious.
Right?
Yes.
Because they got all kinds of applicants who were like, oh, I love this, and it was perfect for me, and please, please take my application. Right. So it also generated a lot of enthusiasm.
Oh, yes.
And so I just love that example of, it's quirky, right? But at the same time, it was really effective. And so the idea is, we're not looking for a particular kind of profile. We're just looking for that the authentic people who are there are also bringing in authentic new people, right? That can get the work done together comfortably, productively, creatively. And so this skills testing at this point, right, along with now some interviews. And then, so talk to us about the interview process and how different teams have different steps that they like to use.
So, I mean, teams, typically they let us,
or an individual.
Different. Right. Yeah, we have a couple different type of search options. On my end, after we're done with that skill assessment, we're meeting with those candidates directly on video, recording the interview, and we're taking a deep dive into their experience on their resume that they've listed, along with several other behavioral questions to learn as much as we possibly can about them, right? before we hand them off to the agent. Because a lot of things that I see when it comes to agents interviewing are they're turning on the sales and the charm, which is fine, but you're not trying to sell anything to the person that is trying to work for you. You're trying to learn as much about them, not connect with them. Like, you love dogs, I love dogs. I think you would make a great assistant. We want to know as much as possible. And unfortunately, some people get very, they don't have the time to invest to learn more about that person. Maybe they're not working for a coach. Maybe their broker is a little bit less involved in their situation, but they don't have any oversight, right? And they don't know. It's not natural. One, it's not natural to know or how to interview. And the other one, it's not natural to know how to interview others. It's definitely a skill.
Right. And so it's similar but different to pre-qualifying a client for a sale, right? But I do tell agents it is a transferable skill.
Yes.
But it is still a slightly unique skill, right? Of being able to listen. It's sort of like when you're with a seller or a buyer and you're listening for an objection, right? And then having a way in which to counteract that objection. But in interviewing, we're listening, right, for things that are either in alignment or potentially what might be considered an objection. But then we have to dive deeper.
Yes.
And not just sell the objection, right? And so you're right, the salespeople are, the agents are salespeople. And so we're not selling in an interview, at least not at this point.
No.
But there might be an element of that, right? If we're competing for a candidate, I certainly have had my share of that. But getting down to then a video interview, then presenting that to an agent who's then having more data, right? Between skill and experience, and now a visual component where there are thoughtful questions at a deeper level with which to review.
Yes. And before we ever send a candidate over to a client, we are also having them complete a DISC assessment.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Fun times. But at this point in the process, if you're working at the capacity in the process that we're working in, obviously there's telltale signs. If somebody's a very high SC combination, very high I, a D, or a complete misalignment and matches that of the agent, right?
So let's do a little definition. So there's different vocabulary. D is dominant, and I is an influencer, and S is stability, I think. And a C, I refer to it as compliance, but I think
analytical,
right?
Highly accurate.
And it is most common for assistants to have a strong SC score on the 4 components of the DISC. But then depending on the job, right, if they're going to have a lot of client interactions, sometimes it's nice to have a little higher I. So they're not too introverted and freaked out when you tell them to talk to all these people. Or if you want a higher D score, more dominant score, because they like to get stuff done, right? And they like to really be able to move things through. So the combination of scores on a DISC does relate to the kind of job and what you need them to do, and also what is a nice compliment, right, to the agent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So obviously these are not pass or fail. This is an indicator. So when we're having candidates taking DISCs and clients are working with us, we absolutely have them sit down and validate that DISC with that candidate. Not only will you learn more about that person than any operational or software question, how-to question that you could possibly ask them, you'll learn who the meat of that person is to their core. And at that point, you can learn, what's truth and what's not truth, right? What do they see that they like? What do they see that they disagree with? And why? Maybe they've overcome those challenges. 20 to 30% of a hiring decision at the most is all a DISC should be. But it's an opportunity to learn more, right?
Yes.
So agents, when you have a difficult time, you're trying to build that relationship, you are so excited somebody, has shown up, they want to work for you. You just want to get started. You just want to get the things and get moving and get the things done. Right? I get that.
I know.
But following a little bit more of a process that's structured and that slows you down, allows you to learn as much as possible about that person before you hire them will only benefit you in the end. And then guess what? You're going to know what to expect.
Yes. Yes.
It's not going to be unpredictable.
Yes. And so let's say we're doing well so far, right? We've been through this. We have a video. Now we have a disc assessment. Now this candidate is in front of an agent.
Yes.
And so now what happens?
Sure. So on that first, we can help. So I help candidate or clients that are highly experienced in hiring. And then I help clients that have never hired a single soul in their life. And then I help everybody else in between.
Right.
I meet someone where they're at, right? And we are incorporating the tools that they need to be successful to get to that end goal and learn what they need to learn, right?
Right.
So we talk about that hiring process. What is their hiring process in that first call? So we already know what to expect. We discuss what our hiring process looks like. Sometimes there's a great way to put those two processes together. But the thing to keep in mind is if your interview process has you meeting directly with a candidate 3, 4, 5, 6 endless amounts of time, you're going to lose interest with that candidate. So you really do need to have a process that helps you and it doesn't hurt you.
And they may lose interest in you because
Yes.
if they are actively looking for a job, then timeliness, right? It's very similar to a lead, like a seller or a buyer. It has a bit of an expiration date on it often. And so you can't drag it out more than it really needs to be dragged out, because when it's hot, it's hot. And there is competition for talent, just like there is competition for a really great listing.
Yes, exactly.
They are very similar.
Yes, our goal is to make this as efficient as possible for you to learn the information that you need to learn about that candidate before you present that offer and decide to move forward together, so that you avoid the hiring mistakes and the churn and burn in those roles and really can develop that consistency within your business because you have that right person in the right place.
Agreed. So I just put into the chat, meet with a candidate more than once. I think we can put that down for sure.
Yes.
But
First
it's like
interview.
a coffee date, the coffee date, everyone's on their best behavior. You need to coffee, then lunch or dinner, like we need to. And then also, thanks, Anne-Marie. Can I take our picture before you go? My team said, can you take a picture today? I was like, sure, we can take a picture. Thank you. And to have a day in the life process, if possible.
Absolutely. Always recommend.
Right? So that in the interview process, that it's for the candidate as much as it is for the agent, right? To be able to try the job on.
Yep. So first step, in person, ask any lingering questions that you may be wondering about. Obviously get to know that person a little bit more on your own level.
Yes.
And, diving into validating that disc is a great way to spend your first interview. If you're still interested in that person and you want to continue to pursue them, wonderful. Next is that day in the life. More of an in-office skill assessment, or depending on the role, right? If we're talking about a VA, remote, local, or otherwise,
right?
Then it becomes more of a project assignment. So we're thinking about the most common things in this specific role. And of course we have suggestions and we come up with a lot of things.
Samples, right?
All of the time. We have suggestions for clients. They may have some of their own suggestions or ideas that we can help incorporate and help them structure that time with their person.
Yep.
So typically not more than 2 hours of time to be spent with that person. And you want to have a plan. So whatever it is that you're having them complete, whether you're checking their tech skills, having them enter something in the CRM, typing, you're having them fill out a listing agreement, fill out a contract, whatever it is, create a small marketing flyer and give them what they need to develop that, right? You're giving them the tools to complete the said projects, and you're available. You're not lurching over them. You're not hovering over them, but you're available for questions.
Right.
And things you're noticing. Are they resourceful? Were you ambiguous? Were you vague? Did they ask good questions? Did they come with solutions to the questions that you asked them in that, right? Did we Google the answer and you're like, you just said this, I'm not sure these are the two directions. Which direction would you like to go? How is their communication during that time? What are you noticing? So you're going to go all the way through that. You're not looking for perfection. You're really just understanding where they're at in their professional journey.
Yes.
And what they're putting in front of you is what they're putting in front of you. And this helps you learn on what you need to maybe train on a little bit for your role with them. And at least you know where they're at. You know what the skills are that they already possess and where they need to be leveled up in order to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve, right? So it's a learning process.
It is. And so, right, all of this goes to having agents not feel like they have to do everything themselves.
Right.
They have to look for what is that complement in this person. Once they know that this is someone they would like to see if they can work with, then what are the final steps of putting the deal together?
Sure. So obviously, after the skill assessment is completed, you want to provide feedback and you don't want to skip this step. Providing feedback to the candidate at this point, remarking on what they did really well, remarking on, giving them some constructive criticism. How do they take that? How do they handle it? This is a pretty high feedback role, right? If somebody's open, interested, and wants to learn from that experience, they're going to respond in one way. If that person does not enjoy feedback, they're going to respond an entire different way.
Okay.
And at that point, are you in alignment, right?
Okay.
Will that work for you? And then before you get to that offer, this is really the third and final interview. You are having an alignment conversation. So you're revisiting the role, the responsibilities, your business, how they fit in, what you're trying to achieve in your business by having them support you. And then you've also are learning and making sure, and you've learned throughout the way, things that are important to them about working for you. Are you meeting their financial requirements? Are you meeting their scheduling requirements? Do you understand, are you on the same page? When you say it's 9 o'clock is when we start work today, that means I expect for you to arrive by at least 10 till and be ready to go, or however long it takes you to be adjusted, and be ready to go at 9. It's the little simple things like that where you're talking about the alignment for the role, the alignment with your expectations, the candidate's alignment with your role, the candidate's alignment with your expectations, and how you envision yourself moving forward together. And if you are, you've got through that, everybody is feeling positive about moving forward, and it's the right fit, you will feel it.
Yes.
And there's the offer.
And where are references?
So for us, we begin checking references if after that first interview with our client, both the candidate and the client would like to proceed forward and continue moving forward together. Okay. We're already reaching out to references and beginning to check them. And then as they come in, we're sharing this information with our client. Typically, I've seen it take anywhere between 24 to 48 hours. It really depends on the individuals that we're reaching out to, right? How busy are they? What does their schedule look like? We provide them with lots of options, but we're collecting this information along the way. And then, of course, once that offer is signed, we're also conducting background checks.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Wow. And because this really is, right, a process of finding that operational administrative partner. Mm-hmm. And for that candidate, right, coming to work for an agent, which I have done both, right? I've been the assistant, I've been the agent, now I'm the business owner. But you need each other to have that complement. And so to have a process and recognize that there really is a long-standing opportunity here to work together for years. Mm-hmm. And so this is a very worthwhile process to go through so that you not only as the agent, the business owner, get the leverage that you need, but you're really providing an incredible opportunity for someone to really own this role and be fulfilled in their work, which is a complement to yours in sales.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. This is a topic that's so deep and wide. I mean, we could talk for hours, Erin.
We really, really could.
Right. And be able to go into the economics. But I do want to put in a plug for your salary survey.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we are in the process. I think the cutoff date is either February 1st or 2nd. Okay. So we have compiled this salary survey for, I think this will be our 8th or 9th year this year. And
Nice.
so far, what we've learned in comparison to last year is 67% of assistants that are working in agents, teams, brokerages nationally. So far, 67% are back in the office.
Interesting.
That's a big increase from last year, wholeheartedly. 18% are providing health insurance coverage. So whether that's a monthly stipend, you have a group benefits within your team,
Okay.
that's now being offered. And I know that's really important for a lot of candidates when they're considering new roles. And 81% of the candidates that have completed that survey so far say they're very, very happy with their salary. Isn't that lovely?
That's wonderful.
Lovely.
That's wonderful. And if people still want to be able to fill this out, so this is admin and this is real estate only, right? This is a very specific survey.
Yes. So real estate administration. So whether you are in residential, commercial, property management,
Yep.
any supportive role, marketing, transaction coordinator, field assistant, what have you, anything on a real estate team that involves administrative focus, that's who we're looking for. We compile these these surveys every year, and we are so excited to see the difference and everything that has changed between last year and this year. So
and you have more people, right, responding this year. So we can also make sure to put the link in so that people can get to the link and fill out the survey if you who are listening are an admin in the industry to be able to participate in that, because it's anonymous. And then the data is broken down geographically. So it's very, very helpful to both admin and to agents, right, who are looking to have up to the minute information about this for themselves and their business.
Absolutely. It's a powerful tool. It just kind of helps you have an understanding of what's going on as you're considering making hires, right? It's always good to stay informed. And it's also nice to kind of check and see, is your current person being paid what they're worth, right?
Right. So we're all on market because
we want to keep our good people.
Compensation is very much like pricing a listing: location, condition, right, and features.
Yes.
And for people in compensation, it is location, right? There's skill and experience and performance.
Yes.
So it's a very similar model, but we need data. So these are sort of the comps for the CMA.
Yes. We started this, I think, at the beginning of January. We're a little over halfway through. We have about a week and a half left.
Yes.
So we are, if you hold the role of an assistant, director of operations, transactions, coordinators, the list is endless on a real estate team, we would love for you to contribute. Again, it's completely anonymous, confidential survey. We will never reveal anything about you. And, you can also enter to win one of 4 $25 gift cards for contributing to that, taking the time to contribute. It takes just about 5 minutes.
Cool. Thank you, Erin. Thank you for being on here with us. I always appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, Kathleen. It was such a pleasure to be here. I thank you so much for your time as well today and for the invitation.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Anne-Marie, and for Lauren, and for Sydney, and for all of you that watch the recording. If you have questions, put them in the comments, and then I look forward to seeing you all next month. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.